Elastic dominance means having more ability to decelerate and rebound than to accelerate. Not a lot of people focus on this. If you look at kids, they are elastic dominant. If you look at dogs, they are elastic dominant. Kids have really, really healthy joints and they don't have massive muscles. Yet they can jump off something that's 2 times their body height and be fine. They can get down into deep squats because the joint integrity is there, because that elastic dominance is there. Football is a really, really good example of this. Like, think about this. 80% of knee injuries happen in deceleration or rebounding force. So that means 80% of the knee injuries that occur is because we have more ability to accelerate and get to a top speed than we do to decelerate, if these are non-contact injuries. So if we became elastic dominant, we may be able to cut those numbers dramatically. And this is what we focus on inside Bulletproof Ballers. And you can see that football is one of the best sports to be able to develop elastic athletes, because we have more decelerations in a 90-minute football game than we do have accelerations. So we are developing this as long as we don't come up against anything that destroys our design. For example, if we have this and then we don't adapt to the stimulus because we're not eating the right nutrition when growing up, like myself, we may have a knee injury. If we train in the gym our acceleration while playing sport, we may have something happen. If we have some kind of pain, injury, or because of our modern lifestyles where we're sitting in chairs all the time, having imbalances inside the body, then again, we can get injured. But if we do develop well, we have good nutrition, we have good lifestyle habits, we don't overtrain our hips and our acceleration force, then football really does develop elastic dominant athletes. And it did develop my base, but then I had a knee injury. I'd slid someone in football and my kneecap snapped, had a meniscus tear. So that was something I couldn't really do anything about. And when I came back, I was focusing on muscle dominant exercises. A good example of this is trap bar deadlifts and box jumps, or weighted box jumps. People think that, okay, I'm functional and I'm strong now, I've got back to trap bar deadlifts and box jumps, but you're really just building acceleration. Imagine you put a Ferrari engine in a car, but then you didn't work on the brakes or the suspension at all. And you get to this top speed and then you can't slow down. You're gonna crash. So being elastic dominant is having more ability to brake than it is to accelerate, get to a top speed, if we're using a car analogy. And most athletes take a wrong approach to this. 9 out of 10 athletes I talk to in the DMs who have had multiple knee surgeries are still using muscle dominant programs. So this can make us feel like we can get back, but it's developing hip power on weak knees when our knees are the thing that need to be trained. It's developing muscle dominant athletes rather than elastic dominant athletes, and we need to be elastic dominant in order to avoid injuries. And I'm not saying building muscle is bad, I'm not saying building acceleration is bad, but if you build acceleration at a higher level, if you build it imbalanced with what you can handle in deceleration and rebounding force, then we are going to have injuries. And this is the thing, we develop the tissues in the opposite way in which we actually need to, because I think there's something like 4 times more money has been spent on researching acceleration than researching deceleration. And we look at the best athletes in the world and they do have a lot of acceleration. Acceleration is super important. Sprint speed is super important. But if you look at the state of football right now, 20% of footballers retire because of knee injuries. Imagine if we had this training that I'm going to talk about now. So white tissues such as tendons, ligaments, cartilage, meniscus, all this stuff within the knee itself creates more elastic athletes. Like, it's not just muscle. Muscle is really, really important. We can develop muscle in the right areas, but it's connective tissue as well that's going to develop elastic dominant athletes. You can look at some of the best athletes in the world. They don't have massive muscles. Some of them do, but some of them don't. And if you look at someone like a best decelerator in the world and best cutter in the world, one of the most elastic athletes such as Lionel Messi, you can actually see that his VMOs are jacked, which the VMO is the closest muscle to the knee joint itself. So if we know that the VMO is jacked, there's a good likelihood that the connective tissue within the knee is really, really good as well. If we've been taken out of sport because of some kind of injury, we do have to use slower movements and strength training within the gym in order to start to rebuild our tissue quality, our tissue tolerance. And then over time we want to build some more speed training, more elastic training, more plyos training, more deceleration and faster forces where we can actually handle this. But our range training, which means short range, medium range and long range training, is going to be able to help us develop the actual joint inside the knee in a controlled way before we go into this other stuff. So deceleration we like to look at more. We like to build from the ground up. This is one of the best things that you could ever do for yourself, because if acceleration is more hip, then deceleration is more knee and ankle and feet. So we need to build the opposite way. We build the sled. We're pushing through the balls of our feet. We're strengthening the feet, ankles, and knees all at the same time. And we are strengthening the exact position in which we decelerate in. The reverse step up, a joint dominant movement that directly targets the connective tissue, the ligaments, and the VMO, which is the closest muscle to the knee. Deep knee bends, ATG split squats, full range of motion squats. These develop the connective tissue within the knee, again, develop the quad muscles so that we can decelerate better. Lying hamstring curls, but especially eccentric Nordic curls, are going to be targeting the back of the knee, the hamstrings, the eccentric hamstring strength, which is crucial in deceleration. Tib raises on the front of the shin, again, super important for deceleration strength. So all of this stuff is going to help our tissue quality build up before we go into the faster stuff in the return to sport phase, where we can start to do small plyos such as skipping. Skipping rope is absolutely great to develop this rebounding force motion. Eventually we want to get to elite standards in decelerations and depth jumps, in rebound box jumps, and all of these kind of elite standards. Don't just rush into them straight away. But again, like most exercises can be regressed to a very low level. You could do a 1-inch depth drop and it probably would be fine for you and just progress that over time. But we need to build the tissue tolerance first in the connective tissue. So if we get to a 6-inch step up, amazing. We can start to then maybe do some depth drops from a few inches and then build that up over time. But we really want to focus on building joint dominant athletes. Most people look at me and think, oh wow, he doesn't have massive muscles, so how has he overcome his knee injury? Why would I listen to this guy when it comes to knee injuries? Well, the connective tissue inside my knees is probably stronger than most people's. And I know it is because I can do certain lifts that actually target the connective tissues. I can jump off crossbars, I can do all this kind of crazy stuff. But that isn't glorified, right? You can't see that kind of stuff. It doesn't grow as big as muscle. So the goal isn't muscle strength on its own. It's actual connective tissue strength. It's the deceleration strength as well as the acceleration strength. So the way I like to progress is elastic dominance, especially if we are overcoming some kind of knee injury. If we've had a knee surgery a little while ago, obviously get cleared to strength train, all that kind of good stuff first. We're not medical experts, but is to train from the ground up. So the first level would be short and mid-range exercises and gentler exercises such as sled, tib and calf raises, isometrics, banded knee extensions, VMO extensions, lying hamstring curls, even banded lying hamstring curls. All of this stuff is going to start to build our capacity to decelerate. Then adding in more joint dominant exercises, like a reverse step up, especially with the heel elevated, whatever height that may be, even flat ground to start with. But start building that up, start working on our range in our ATG split squat and our deep squats. Possibly not doing deep squats in this period of time either for a while. And then eventually, once we're getting good at the hamstring curls, some of the mobility work, the split squats, the step ups, then we can start to add in more of the intense stuff. So maybe some VMO squats, which is starting to get into more of a longer range for the knee. Some more intense stimulus on the actual knee joint. Maybe it's some Nordic curls that we start to add in. Okay, amazing. Maybe start some of this long range exercises where the muscle is more lengthened and there is more tension on the connective tissue within inside the knee, the reverse Nordics, the sissy squats. And then eventually, once our tissues are at a good point, anywhere between 3 and 9 months of training this kind of stuff, depending on your starting point, is when we start to add in the faster forces. So we progress the strength and the deceleration ability before we address the faster forces. And the faster forces, I would focus on the deceleration way before the acceleration. But this is not before we've developed the tissue quality, which allows us to start handling this stuff more. And there is a progression for all of this stuff in its own right as well. But the idea of the video is to get you thinking about elastic dominance. It's to get you thinking about where do knee injuries come from, 80% in deceleration forces. So how do we build deceleration strength? If you just done the strength exercises and done all of your other stuff with the PTs and that kind of stuff, you'd get a lot further than if you just done the PT stuff where we're focusing on trap bar deadlifts, Bulgarian split squats, leg extensions, RDLs, box jumps, and we're powering up our acceleration, but we're not powering up our deceleration. Deceleration and rebounding force is the most important thing that we can do for protection. And protection is the best thing that we can do for our careers, because there is no ability that is as good as availability. If you can be the person that is available, you will have a better chance of developing yourself in your sport and to getting on the team, or whatever your goal is, to just playing sport, to walking down hills, to doing whatever you love to do. We just want to stay in. Then once we're at that point, we can then start to focus on acceleration and hip power and muscle while keeping the connective tissue solid, but not until that point. It's about the order of training that is super, super important. And we do have the 3R system that we run through with people. If you do want to check out this stuff in more detail, I would check out my other videos that I've done on that system, which go into more detail on the exercises, the progressions, all that kind of stuff that we've done. This video is more for awareness, to get you aware of this kind of stuff and start thinking about it, start implementing it in your training a little bit. I hope this video helps. If you do have any questions about it, please drop in the comment section down below.